Hi, my name is Bob Bose. I represented Boulder County on the Colorado Baseball Commission. Like most of the people on the commission, I'm a big baseball fan. I played a lot of ball when I was a kid. Even, I think by the time I was in 8th grade, got scouted by a stringer in my neighborhood for the White Sox and the Pirates, I think he was. Anyway, at some point I became aware that the legislature had passed some statutes involving the baseball, trying to bring baseball to Denver. This had been a long time coming before the legislature finally got to it. There was a lot of hard work done. That was a whole touch and go type of thing. Chris Paulson and Kathy Williams and Neil all worked their magic, and so we got by that first big hump. And then it came time for the counties and the governor to appoint people. So I applied in Boulder County. There were 22 of us that applied, and the commissioners interviewed us in two groups of 11. And I did have an acquaintance with the three commissioners from Boulder County, but I think the reason that they ended up appointing me was for a couple things that happened in the interview, which were really lucky on my behalf. Everybody was going around the table saying what a baseball fan they were and how long this went back with them and everything. And so I had really the same thing to say, but I brought along a couple pieces with me that helped me. When I was 11, I had a book that was published by Gillette that had diagrams of all the baseball parks at that time, which was in 1960. That was also the year that the Giants began playing in San Francisco and the Braves moved from Boston to Milwaukee. So I did not have schematics of those stadiums. So I wrote the Giants and the Braves and asked them, I was 11 at the time, if they had any pictures or schematic drawings of that, because I was just fascinated by the fact that baseball parks were all different, and some of them had very idiosyncratic features because of the real estate that they had been built on in the old cities. And so the San Francisco Giants wrote me back on their letterhead with a couple of photographs of Candlestick under construction. And the Milwaukee Braves sent me a giant schematic of what became Milwaukee County Stadium, down to all the seat details, which way the football field would be oriented when the Packers played in Milwaukee, all this kind of stuff. So I brought along that schematic along with a letter from the Giants. So that gave me a big plus with the commissioners, because not only was I able to say that I had been a baseball fan for a long time, but that I was a bit of a fanatic and had some evidence for that. The other question that came up that allowed me to kind of set myself apart from others was one fellow trying to butter up the commissioners said, well, I think the stadium ought to be in Boulder. And so this was a perfect entry point for me to say, no, it should be downtown, it should be located near central transportation. At that time, the RTD district, the 6 counties, had plans, which we see now, today, are fantastic at Union Station and everything around it. I took a walk down there the other day and literally could not believe what I saw in terms of the development in the area. I had been familiar with all the condominiums and the conversion between downtown and where the baseball park is in terms of, like I said, condos and retail and all of this stuff. But I hadn't really looked around the station, and I just, it was hard for me to believe, and I realized that whatever we had promised in the course of trying to get the 6 counties to pass this 0.1% sales tax that was necessary in order to pay for the baseball stadium, to show Major League Baseball that we could build a baseball-only stadium. All of these promises about development and such had exceeded themselves by 10 times. It's really astounding how the baseball park jump-started a transformation of Denver that has been phenomenal and really put Denver as a city in an entirely different class than it was before that, in terms of economic stability, nightlife downtown, people living downtown, and just in general its reputation. Colorado's always had a great reputation for recreation and weather and all of these types of things. But now this was a different ballgame, as we've seen now 24 years after baseball's first been played in Denver. So my contribution on the baseball commission, once we got there, Boulder County's a smaller county as it goes, but we were struggling a little bit at first. We hadn't done any fundraising, and we had to figure out when we were going to hold this election and how all that was going to come about. And I had a friend, an attorney who was in the field of finance and at that time penny stocks in Denver, and he gave us a check for $25,000, he and his buddies. And that seemed to ease things up. We were able to go look for some political consultants, and after that the ball started rolling. And so I felt really good about that. I wasn't as connected as many people on the commission politically, but I do know a fair number of people here. I came here in the 70s, grew up north of Chicago and went to school out near San Francisco. So I felt really good about that. And then once the date had been set, it was sometime in August that the consultants recommended. We had a lot of work to do in terms of going around and writing editorials. So I wrote a couple of editorials for the Boulder Daily Camera and the Longmont Times Call, and then we did the rubber chicken circuit, as it's called, the Rotary Club and the Lions Club and all of those gatherings, and just talked up what we were doing. So as it turned out, when the vote finally came down, Boulder County actually passed it by the largest plurality of all 6 counties. That was a nice thing to see, and and there we were. We had well, after it passed, of course, Major League Baseball still had to make its decision as to which cities were going to get a team. And I had worked in the television industry for some time, in public television. I helped start Colorado Public Television. I worked at Rocky Mountain PBS. And so I was able to make some contributions to this fabulous promotional videotape that some other folks did the bulk of the work on, called The Time Zone Without a Team. And Bob Euchre was the host for this. He was very funny. And we gave out copies of this when I remember part of the NCAA basketball tournament was held leading up to Major League's decision point. So we were able to get to a lot of the sports press with this video and some other ways. It really was remarkable to think about the fact that this entire Mountain Time Zone did not have a baseball team. And that ended up being a really good approach for the commission. We ended up getting support letters from governors, other governors, surrounding states, Wyoming, Oklahoma, etc., to support that idea. And so I think that was another good reason for it. I also remember research being done on the climate here and comparing our sunny days to LA and that type of thing. So we showed up really well in that regard. There had also, once it we were awarded the franchise, which was kind of like a dream come true here. Denver was a growing city, and we look at it today. Certain areas of the metropolitan region, I know between Boulder and Longmont, has the highest concentration of high-tech jobs per capita in the United States, more than the Silicon Valley per capita. We've got Google setting up a campus in Boulder right now. Everybody's waiting to hear where Amazon's going to put a new campus. That was a significant shift from some difficult economic times during the period when we were trying to get this all to happen. And then following that, things started building up too. So it's wonderful to see that Denver is one of just a few cities that has all four major sports teams at the same time, and that the city still supports the arts and science through its Scientific and Cultural Facilities District at the same time. So it's just a wonderful combination for the city, and all of us, not just those of us on the baseball commission, but I think all of us that have been in Denver for a while are just happy to see this. There's concerns about growth, as there should be, but it's nice that that the city now lives up to one of our early mottos. We had these white caps made for us with a batter on them that said, "Denver is Major League," and that's what we're seeing now. So we couldn't be more pleased.
That's great. What are you doing this evening?
I'm sorry?
What are you doing this evening?
Oh, tonight I'm going to see the Rockies. We are in the last week of the season. The Rockies have a two-game lead on 2.5 maybe on St. Louis and Milwaukee for the second wild card spot. So we're hoping that they hang in there and and see that out. It looks like they will then have a one-game play-in with the Diamondbacks to see who gets into the actual divisional playoffs, the 5-game series. So, this would be the third time that the Rockies, in their 24-year history, would be in the postseason. To me, this is just a surfeit of phantasmagoria, because I grew up north of Chicago with the Cubs, and as I tell everybody, the Cubs never won a World Series in my dad's lifetime, and never played in one in mine until last year, when after 108 years they finally turned the trick. So we have a lot of patience with our teams, and it's nice to see that the Rockies have a good organization, that they're learning how to play at altitude. That's been a difficult adjustment for the team, I think. We started out with a humidified ball. The dimensions of the field were part of the consideration based on notes. What was the fellow's name from the Denver Post? And he was the field, one of the announcers at the Bears games. I can't remember his name, but he kept meticulous notes of the Denver Bears game over the decades in terms of wind direction, all sorts of things. And those were taken into consideration on the orientation of Coors Field. It still has the largest outfield in Major League Baseball. And I do have a suggestion for Major League Baseball. In fact, Neil, when you go to talk to Bill White, this is a big deal, really. And I mentioned this to Dick Monfort, who's the principal, he's the lead of the ownership group here, is that the humidifier, as it's now deployed, doesn't really make as much difference as it could. in terms of normalizing baseball. I know that they're using one starting this year in Arizona as well. And the problem with it is that the balls get humidified. The umpires come in before the game, as usual, a few hours beforehand, and they rub all the baseballs up, and then they put them in the box in the dugout. Well, as anybody who lives in Colorado knows, after about 15 minutes, if you put your laundry out in the summer, it dries out completely. So my recommendation is that a humidifier be put in the dugout. Now, this could raise a few eyebrows. I know Bruce Bochy, when he was with the Giants, managing the Giants, complained one time saying that all the softest ones were being used when the Giants were coming up to hit. So, you know, perhaps it would take an additional official to oversee that humidifier. But we can see the difference when there's humidity here. The scores are very close to being normal, and when it gets really hot in the summer and dry, or particularly if there's fires and the smoke's blowing in when it really dries out, the baseball scores become football scores. They just go up and up. And the issue really is that when the Rockies are in a pennant race and all the contenders go into the free agent markets in August, many of the best pitchers are reluctant to come here because of the high scoring that happens here. And so in a manner to normalize this, it's our hope that we could bring down the runs, get Denver more in the middle of the pack, so that when we are in contention, we would have a shot at some of these veterans. So that's my only that's my only concern right now in terms of normalizing things. I think they did increase the fence height in right center field this year, and I think that was a good move. I've seen a number of balls that would have gone out that have turned into doubles, and you know, and that's a good way to keep it in the park. But hopefully this will still get smoothed out, and we love our baseball here. The Rockies, of course, when they began that initial three-game series at Mile High Stadium, set a new Major League Baseball record for attendance for those 3 games, and the team did really well, and it still does well. So we couldn't be more pleased, and I'm just I feel very privileged to have taken part in all of this and made a small contribution.